the reality and the hard truth is, did my church grow? Yes, it grew to the if not the first, it's either the number one or number two largest Church of God church in Kansas. And but that sounds really good on paper, but it I was dead. I mean, after 2 years, I was done, and I couldn't stay any longer because I was so beat down and worn out. I had to do something else.
Hey, thank you so much for tuning in to the Revitalized Church podcast. We're excited to have you with us today. It's great to have Pastor Mark Ingram with us today. Pastor Mark is in Monroe, Michigan at Stewart Road Church. His life has been quite the journey. If you haven't heard about it or read their book that they came out with, I'm sure that you will be blessed by this. We're looking forward to having this conversation, to learning what he knows about church revitalization, what has he put into practice, what's worked, what didn't work. So I know you're going to be blessed. Hang in for the rest of the episode and enjoy this. Hey, Mark, thank you so much for agreeing to be here. I know you've got a busy schedule. You got a lot going on up there in Michigan, and so excited to be able to tell your story today. Thank you for being a part of this, and I look forward to hear what you got to say.
Hey, thanks so much. We're honored to do it, and just thrilled to just share some stories, share some insight with you guys, and just grateful for the opportunity. So thank you for having me on, and just love church planting, church revitalization. It's all a lot of fun, good stuff.
Now, you've done a little bit of both of those. You've been a part of church plants and church revitalizations, right? So if you don't mind, take a few minutes, just tell us about yourself, tell us about your family, where you've been, and a little bit of your experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm married to Christy Ingram, and I have two children. They're almost, well, I guess they would be adults now, Sarah and Drew Ingram, and Drew is 17, Sarah's 20. And we've been serving in ministry together now for a little over 20 years. We started off in Virginia. That's kind of where we just really started our ministry. We were non-denominational. We were part youth pastors and associate pastors. Then we did that for a while. And then God opened the door for us to move to Kuwait. That was really by a mentor of mine that I had. He had been mentoring me for overseas ministry. I traveled with him to Africa on multiple occasions. And that's really where God just put in my heart a real strong burden for missions, for just the global ministry, the global church, the international church. And so that's kind of where the interest begun to spur inside of me. And the door opened for us to go to Kuwait through this individual. He invited us to go and to look. And so we went to Kuwait. We committed to a 5-year journey there. We can talk more about that if you like, but we ended up planting 2 different churches while in Kuwait, mostly of young people, over 20 different nationalities. It was like heaven on earth. I don't know if I'll ever pastor such a kingdom focused type of ministry again. It was extraordinary. It changed my life forever. It changed my outlook of ministry. It changed my how I just in every way and shape and form of how I approach ministry. It changed my family, my kids, my wife. All of us are, because they did ministry with us in Kuwait. We just have a different perspective. That's not necessarily to toot our own horn and say we're better. It's just that we're just different. We moved to Kansas from Kuwait. We were not planning on doing that. We were actually wanting to stay home in Virginia, kind of take a church there. And we were invited at the time by Bishop Rice, Darrell Rice, to come and to look at a church revitalization. He said, look, Mark, I know that there's something out there better for you guys if you want to take it, but we could really use your help here in Kansas. This is used to be a strong church for many years, and we would love for you to come and look at it. And we reluctantly went. We really did not want to move to Kansas, had no intention on moving to Kansas. And we just said, you know what, we'll do a road trip and visit Colorado and just stop by, preach, and just see what happens. And we did that. And um, over the weekend, after we had preached that Sunday morning, we both kind of were like, no way are we going to take this. This is just not what we want. And we were eating breakfast at IHOP, and I heard the Holy Spirit just plainly say to me, and it was a confirmation to Christy, that I had, the Holy Spirit just said, I've trained you for this. This is why you're here, and I want you to take this church. And I said, Lord, I can't take this church. This church is, I felt like you're taking me back to Egypt, not moving forward. I felt like we're just a step backward. And then I knew the kingdom is not like we perceive it to be. Many times we think of the kingdom as a ladder that you just
Hmm.
go from one advancement to the next. But sometimes the upward way of the kingdom is going down. and
Right.
uh, and so we took that church in Kansas. So that was our first revitalization, and we would have more to come. And we started revitalizing that church, and slowly but surely it became probably the most thriving church in a Church of God church in Kansas.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's kind of a little bit about us and what we're doing now. And here we are, and we moved to North Carolina 6 months ago, and loved North Carolina. Was thankful for the 5 years of ministry we had there. Had every intention on being there to retirement. It was a piece of heaven, and again, it was more or less one of those things where um, God just kept pushing us to do something different. And so
Hmm.
we're now in Monroe, Michigan, and we're doing another revitalization. This is a little bit different situation. It's a much bigger church, but big, small, it doesn't matter. It needs revitalizing.
That's right. Oh wow, man! Look, so I love when you said that when you went to Kansas, you said there's no way we're going to go here. This isn't part of our plan. God has a way of really changing these things sometimes that we think that yeah, this isn't going to happen. But God, I tell everybody, God has a sense of humor sometimes.
He
It's
does.
almost like He waits for us to say, "I don't want to do this," or "That's not for me," and then He turns it around and say, "Oh yeah, but I'm the one in control."
That's right.
And so that, man, that is an awesome. Awesome experience. I mentioned Christie's book.
Hmm.
I read that last year when it
Okay.
came out. Her book Sifted. If anybody's watching this, I'll put a link down in the comments if y'all want to go find it. It's on Amazon. Um, that's a hard read. That is, I'll be honest, me and my wife both read it. And as we're going through that, reading your story, reading what you went through, I mean, you can really, that was hard. That had to be I mean, like, now I'm asking, were you planting an English speaking church in Kuwait? Was it from people that were
Yes.
primarily English speaking there?
Yes. So it was an international congregation, and our primary mission was to the expatriates that had moved to Kuwait, that were living as expatriates. They were from other countries, and our objective was to just reach those people groups um, as Christians, to have a Christian English speaking congregation. And
Right.
so we ended up reaching Muslims as well, because it's a Muslim country, but that was not our primary focus. Our primary focus was reaching Christians that were living overseas that needed a place to call church.
And y'all had to do that under the radar, right? Like you couldn't really broadcast what you were doing. So the normal means of us advertising our church, advertising, you weren't able to do that. So it's solely
Word of mouth.
trusted word of mouth.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, both churches we planted were underground, and they're still existing today.
Hmm.
But they were very challenging. We faced a lot of opposition. We almost got shut down one time. Thankfully, it didn't happen. But we had to be very careful, vigilant. We were without a visa. We were on a tourism visa, but we were without a residential visa for a couple of years, and that was challenging
Hmm.
just in itself, because you're just an illegal alien, basically. You don't have any rights. it's gonna be very challenging, especially with a family there too.
Mhm.
So and with Christy's book, you got to really hear her side.
Right.
Um, that is her story. It is very raw and real. It's kind of the PG-13 version.
Right.
There's probably an R-rated version there, but she, she refrained from from opening up too much. But she is definitely a raw and real. It's just kind of her story, and it's helped a lot of people, especially missionaries. I think the Church of God is putting it in their repertoire of books for missionaries to read, especially pastors' wives. It
Hmm.
kind of gives that insight of what it's like as a woman, with kids in a foreign country, and just surviving,
Hmm.
and so it was really good. Yeah, thanks for
That's
sharing about the book.
Yeah, and that's something that's on our radar here that me and my wife talk about. That is the role of what pastors' wives are going through. And you talk about what you can and can't share PG-13. I mean, even in these kind of podcasts, we're sharing our personal experiences, but we know that we're still surface level. I mean, we can't go into deep detail on what we've been through. But
Right.
pastors' wives carry a heavy load.
They do.
In one of my classes that I took last fall, it talked about how that, especially during the revitalization or during the church plant, but mostly in revitalization, you're making really hard changes in the church, and people always have like, I don't want to say anything against. Um, I don't want to have. I don't want to. I don't want to touch God's anointed. I don't want to have those problems. But they're not afraid to go after the pastor's wife. And
Mm.
so that is a real struggle. And so for the pastors' wives that are out there, pastors, consider your wife, talk to her about what's going on. I encourage her to read this. If for anything else, she's not alone. Connect with, we've got PCG groups for pastors.
That's
We need to be pushing that for pastors' wives.
amazing. And in church revitalization or church planting, there's a there's a there's a different level or degree of difficulty that you face as a couple walking into situations that are very bleak, and there's no help. There's no team in place. There's no staff in place. There's little to no finances, and you really have to be a team, as a husband and wife. You have to kind of come in together and do it together, and it can be tough. It can be tough on the spouse because um, they might not have friends, they might not have those connections, and so you really have to lean on one another for support, for encouragement, and it really takes, I would say, in church revitalization or church planting, it takes a special anointing, a special call, if I may, to just be able to handle that, and especially with the pastor's wife, she has to be kind of all on board. It's not for the faint of heart. I like to say it that way. This is not for the casual pastor, for the Christian, or we use the term casual Christian. Well, this is
Mhm.
not for the casual pastor. It will beat you down. It will brutally. It can cause. I'm not going to hold back here. It can cause marriage problems. It can
Mhm.
cause marriages to break up. If you don't go in with a mindset that we're a team and we're going to do this together. I married a strong woman. I married a woman that is called into ministry, and so she has a lot of tenacity and toughness. But I can't imagine living the life that I'm living right now, and doing what we've done, with any other woman. It, it, it I'm here today because of other outside of God, because I married an incredible woman that could help me with it. And I would say church planting, if you're going to get into church planting or you're going to get into church revitalization, you need to make sure that your wife is on board with you 100% and she's ready.
Absolutely. I'm working on an article I want to write in the future about the
Okay.
why of church planting. You got to know why you're doing this, because it is, like you said, it's not for the faint of heart. It's hard. And that's why I
No.
want to bring that up is, I think it's revitalization is the catchword. Everybody wants to revitalize the church. We want to, oh, I'm going to do this. you really need to know what you're stepping into,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
it is, you're changing the way people have done things for a long time. It needs to be
Absolutely.
revitalized for a reason. And do you have the fortitude? And as your
Yes.
family, it's going to take a toll. So you better be prayed up, be ready for that. So thank you for sharing that. I know sometimes it can be hard to go into how it's affecting your family, but y'all were very transparent. She was, especially through the book. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Um,
Absolutely.
so I want to ask you. I've got a few questions we talked about. One is your mission. You know, a lot of guys, we hear that thrown around, our mission and our vision, and I
Hmm.
think that's very important. We got to know our goals and where we want to go. And I know you haven't been there terribly long. You've been, is it 6 months at
6 months.
uh,
Yep.
6 months where you're at now? So share a little bit about what your vision for Stewart Road is in the time that you've been there, and how that's guiding you now, through some of the changes you're making, through some of the things you're doing. How did you even come up with that in the 6 months? What's got you there?
Yeah. So the previous pastor that was here before I had a really strong vision in place. And that was one of the things that I considered when I moved here is, am I going to want to change the vision, or am I going to kind of take the vision and build off of it? And so, and other times, like when we went to Kansas, I built the vision from ground up. Um, Also in North Carolina, the same thing. I
Hmm.
came in and I put a new vision in place after being there for about a year. We did that with this church here in Monroe. It was a little different. I basically just felt to take the mission and vision that the previous pastor had in place that was already effective, and really just kind of work on changing the culture more than the
Hmm.
vision. I think the what I saw here is more of a, not so much the vision was bad, but it just, the culture needs to change for the people to get behind the vision. So we're kind of in a place right now where we're trying to get healed,
Hmm.
trying to get healthy. Um,
Hmm.
but our motto here is pretty simple. It's we want to change Monroe and beyond. And so
Hmm.
we're trying to, so we have a statement that says, we exist to transform lives in the city of Monroe and beyond. And so what we're trying to do for me is I'm trying to change the focus and culture of our church from a community focused church to a regionally focused church, because of the strategic location. Excuse me, the strategic location that we have, and the that we're in,
Hmm.
and for the previous success of this church that we've had. I really feel like the Lord is just directing us to become more of a regionally focused church, so that we can kind of be put our hands and feet in parts of not just this area, but also all throughout Michigan and the state of Michigan.
Oh man,
So
that's a great way to really impact a larger territory. Gives you a bigger audience. It gives you some goals, and that helps that you already kind of had some of that mission and vision there. I know sometimes it takes a while,
it does.
to kind of get that renewed. You got to get there, and it's you got to know the people. You got to learn them. And I think that's one thing we see people jumping in too fast with a new vision and a new mission before they even really know what they're working with.
That's right.
Uh, and so that's pretty smart right there. So if you're watching this, try and key in on that and learn that your mission and vision has got to match the people that's there. If you don't
It
have the people around it to pull it together, but that culture, man, I love. I don't think we talk about culture enough.
we don't.
Of everybody on the same team. Teams are important. I'm a team guy. I grew up playing baseball, soccer, basketball. Um, those two were my basketball and soccer were the least of my two best sports, but baseball was my sport, and I was a team guy. I loved working with guys on the team. I
Yes.
loved being a part of it, and even here at the church, I try and surround myself with that because they help key in on my blind spots and places where I might be weaker. So
Yeah.
that culture is, but in that you need to build the right people for that team. Just don't pick a willing body if they don't
Hmm.
fit the culture of what you have. um, don't just say, "Hey, man, I need a team. Will you be on it?"
That's
Because
right.
once you get somebody on it, it's hard to get them off.
Hmm.
So you might not be able to talk about enough about where the church has been and where it's going now. and as far as you've only been there for 6 months now.
Hmm.
But I mean, what do you see? What's some of your goals in the future that you'd love to see? I know you said you want to reach out, but do you have anything that like in that 3 to 5 year goal that you're willing to share? You might, you ain't got to share that you haven't told your church yet, but like, what are you forecasting for them? What are you vision casting?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the first things I did was establish a legacy campaign, and so I'm really big on legacy. That in order for a church to change the culture, we have to think about the next generation. We have to think about, will this church exist beyond me, beyond as a legacy in our church of let's build for tomorrow, let's build for the future. And so I would say the biggest thing that I'm really focusing on now is, and this has been just slowly and changing the way our platform looks to what we focus on. And it's not that we don't care or not love or honor our seniors. It's very important that we do honor them and that we respect them, but at the same time, there has to be an emphasis on the legacy of the church so that it won't die and that it has to move forward. And so that means, and this is where revitalization is so tough, is because you have to change a lot of times the music style. You have to change the media, the lighting, and revitalization is hard because you're not just a preacher. You're not
Mm-hmm.
just you're not just getting up there and preaching a lesson or a Bible sermon. You have to be a good marketing person. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be a good graphic designer. And the thing is that what I found to be successful is just surround yourself with young people.
Oh
So,
yeah. Yeah.
my son is helpful. My daughter's been helpful with that. But um, you know, we strive. We did this in Kansas, and it was successful. We kind of learned from trial and book. For me, it was more or less just learning through trial and error. But um, I just emphasize we're going to focus on the young people in our church, and so we kind of gear everything around not just the youth, but I would say the age group to be specific would be um, teenagers up to about 40 to 45 years of age. That's the target group that we're going after. So younger families. So obviously, children's ministry is an emphasis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, your student ministry, pouring your finances, your resources into having a powerhouse children's ministry, student ministry, um, praise and worship to be. Kids are so fickle, man.
Mm-hmm.
Young people just they will not go to a church where the worship's not good. I don't know
Right.
how. Yeah, I'm just, they're just
Yeah.
not going to go. Like if you start singing old songs, they're just not going to. They're going to go with their friends to the other church
Mm-hmm.
down the road, and we sit back and scratch our head and like, where are our people at? Why aren't they
Right.
coming? So to revitalize a church, and that's what makes church revitalization so hard is, you know, I think what separates a revitalizer from just a pastor is we have to make those really hard decisions. Every church I've pastored and I've revitalized, I've lost some key families.
Mm-hmm. And
But
that's hard.
it's very hard. But we gain, for the changes usually that we
Mm-hmm.
make, for the one family we lose, we'll usually gain eventually 10 new families for the
Mm-hmm.
change. And so I don't know if I answered your question or not. I kind of
No,
got off
and that no,
track.
and that helps. I mean, that's especially on the losing people. You've got to be. People can look at us and think we're hard hearted. You're leaving us behind. This is the way we've always done things. This is what we know. And I understand that, But that's also what happens is you get to a place where you really like it, you're really comfortable, and then you stay. And then, you know what I'm saying? And once that happens, you kind of plateau. Well, a lot of churches are still trying to relive 2000 to 2005 or
Yeah.
1990 to 95, whatever their glory days are. They're trying to mimic that and do the same thing. And you've got to overcome that force that's holding them where it's
Right.
at and go.
Right.
And some people just aren't willing to make that journey. And
No,
that can be really hard when you see somebody just been there their entire life walk out. But that's just,
no, you're
it this
good. I'm sorry.
yeah, this is bigger than us.
That's right.
And
That's
so
right.
we have to do that. So on that, you named all the different things. One of my questions is, what do you consider a healthy church? And you can kind of see where your emphasis are. You named your children's department, your youth department, your legacy department. Like, I believe it's all of them.
Mm.
So tell me a little bit, what has been your secret sauce? I've watched you. Okay. So I've watched your story. I've heard about it. You were 20 miles down the road or less from me when you were here in North Carolina. So I got to see what you did there at Midpoint. I mean, that was a fantastic thing. A lot of success there. You obviously had success in Kansas, success in Kuwait. What do you think is, if you were to look back, what is Mark Ingram's secret sauce? What's the one thing that you can say, hey, this worked everywhere I went, and this is my go-to?
Mm.
Is there something like that?
Yeah, yeah, I believe it is. I think it's very hard to do, but at the end of the day, I think it's empowering people. Um, it's discipling. A lot of pastors today are they're really good shepherds. They're really good preachers. I think our denomination has some of the greatest preachers on the face of the earth. I'm convinced that great preaching doesn't grow churches. I'm
Thank
not
goodness for that.
the
Can I amen that? I'm thankful
Amen.
for that one.
And I say the same thing. I'm not the greatest or most eloquent speaker. I'm more of just a teacher preacher, kind of go back and forth. But I think what grows churches, the secret sauce is having a vision and just every single Sunday casting vision to your people. I didn't realize I was doing this until somebody pointed it out to me. Matter of fact, they pointed it out to me at Midpoint. They said, Pastor, do you realize you cast vision every week? And they were telling me, they were like, I've never met a visionary quite like you. And I didn't even know I was doing it, but I
Mhm.
think that vision just flows out of me. It's kind of just it's my gifting from the Lord. If I had to describe myself in a nutshell, I would say that I'm a visionary. Um,
Awesome.
I, I'm always looking ahead. I'm never happy with like the present. I have to really
Right.
work hard to be content in the now because I'm always thinking about where we need to be. And so I think vision, casting that vision, Habakkuk 2:2 says that we're to write down the vision and make it plain.
Mhm.
That those that read it, they'll read it and run with it. And so you need people. You need to make the vision plain so that they can see it. They need to get excited about it. And I think that's where the making disciples and building a team, get a team around you that, man, they're just engrossed with the vision.
Mhm.
They're so on fire. And young people, if they see that you're behind them and
Mhm.
and like that you've given them a mission and that you're supporting them, they'll get behind you. And then,
Absolutely.
and the older people will they'll join in the ranks with you, even though they might not like the newer music style or the lights or that kind of stuff. They might like the traditional stuff. Let me tell you, um, I love what Brian Cutshaw said in his book Bows and Arrows. You
Mhm.
know, when you start getting the older generation to see, hey, my grandchildren want to come to church, my children want to come to church, the grandparents will be like, you know what? I'm okay that the music style is not a hymn or an older song, because my grandchildren come here and they love worshiping God here. And then they'll
Hmm.
start pouring resources and money and into the vision because they're seeing their children come. And I don't know if I answered the secret sauce there, but that's kind of how it's worked for me.
No, I don't think we share vision enough. If somebody could take that, me and my wife were discussing this. I'm going back through training, starting in a couple of weeks with some of the people at my church with my volunteers, and I said I can't expect somebody to do something that I've never talked to them about. I can't
Right.
expect our church to get on board with something I've never shared. I can't expect us to get somewhere if we've never. And so we hear people that talk about how hard it is to get there, everybody on board, but yet have you ever really shared it in a way that they can understand it? And you pastor, like I do, that you never have the same conversation, you never have the same congregation 2 weeks in a row. And so if
Yeah,
you say something this week and you say something next week, you're going to cover. I
that's
know Beasley told me one time that he preached the same sermon for a month. He said,
hmm
and I still didn't cover everybody. And so, that's our thing. Share that vision, share that vision, share that vision. I love to watch Chris Hodges. He's one of the ones I like to learn from a lot. And man, when you watch him, when he first gets up before a sermon, he shares every Sunday. This is what we're doing. This is what you're a part of. And so
it's
that's
funny.
very, very valuable.
It's funny you mentioned Chris Hodges. I would say that Chris Hodges has probably had the most impact and influence on my ministry in the recent years as anyone.
Hmm.
I've been to a few of his growth conferences, and yeah, so he's definitely a guy. Highlands Church is a church that I would look at. They have a model there that it works. Yeah, they're on point there for sure.
And a lot of their resources are free. You go to
Yes.
Church of the Highlands, look at their website. You can find a lot
Yep.
of training. If you can't train your greeters, your hospitality team, your ushers, they have
hmm
videos for that. So
That's right.
check that out, man. So we've got your vision. That's your secret sauce. I love to hear this one. What's your biggest bomb, man? What is something that, like, when you got done? I love to tell everybody one of my favorite things. You'll probably hear this on every podcast. Is the time I walked off the stage with my mic still on and looked at my wife and said, I bombed that one with the mic and the live stream still on. So everybody knows I felt like that, but I learned something from that day. So
Yeah.
I learn more from my failures, I think, than I do my successes.
Oh,
So
absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
what's your biggest learning experience that you wouldn't mind sharing?
Yeah. Gosh, there's so many.
Not that many failures. Come on now.
oh yeah, there's a lot. I think um the biggest thing I take away, I think that I've gotten from church planting, church revitalization, that if I could go back and do it all over again, is I can be pretty demanding guy at times, and I can be pretty. I've made mistakes. I've been hard on staff sometimes and leaders, and so I think um, just operating more now in grace and patience, and not being so harsh and tough
Hmm.
in situations. I've lost some good people,
Hmm.
Pastor. There's some good people I look back and think I wish I'd have handled it differently. I was just not kind enough, or I was too difficult at times with people. Now, some of that, is kind of it's a toss up of you need it and you have to be careful, because I think that's part of church revitalization is you have to be kind of tough skinned and you have to make very tough decisions.
Hmm.
So on one hand, I would say that it's been my greatest asset, being tough and making those hard decisions. But on the flip side of it, I've lost some good people, and I wish I could have handled it differently.
I've shared that with some friends before. I heard a story one time of some surgeons that were talking to each other, and they talked about the first time that they killed somebody. That they're trying to do a life-saving surgery, and that's blunt terminology to use, but that surgery, a small mistake or something didn't go like they had planned, or they were trying to save someone's life,
Yeah, that's good.
and it
Never
and
heard
it
that.
just didn't work out. And
Mm,
so I've got people that, I've got situations that, this is my first pastorate, and so I've been here going into my 5th year, almost done with 5 years, and man, I look back at a couple of the first ones, and I blew that one completely.
mm.
And I've actually talked to a couple of them that, this didn't go exactly like I was hoping, and didn't work out like I wanted. I made some mistakes. We made them together. I was trying to do the best that I can, but revitalization is kind of like that surgery too. You're removing some things. There's a lot of times we're just trying to stop the patient from dying. A lot of churches are right on that verge when you get there, and you got to act quick on some things. Some decisions you can take a while, some you don't have time to, and we're going to make mistakes.
Yes.
And that's a real one. That's real what you just shared about. I've lost some people and that you've done wrong, and weren't crazy about how it happened. So yeah, when you pastor, and you got to be willing to
Yeah.
take that hurt. So if you would, spend just a few minutes right here at the end, talk to a new pastor. If you've got somebody that's going into the ministry, or they're about to embark on a church that they know going into it, the church has signed on, they've signed on, they're going through a revitalization process. Give that guy some encouraging words for just a minute.
Oh, wow. That's a good one. Yeah, I would say, I like to use the analogy of saying of a pioneer. When you're a revitalizer, you're a pioneer. You're blazing a new trail. And so I would warn them that the first 2 years, you just need to find ways to take breath, to breathe, to come up for oxygen. Find people that will have your back. Find people that will get on board with your vision and just pour into them. Eat with them, have coffee with them, and just pour your energy. It's better to pour your energy into 2 or 3 people than it is 25 people that most of them are not going to be with you. If you could just devote most of your energy in that, it's going to help you. And just that group of people can do far more for you than, investing that much time into, the 25 people that are there with you, that they're not going to take you anywhere. It's the sad truth, but when you're revitalizing an old church that's dead, I'll never forget, I heard this said to me: it's easier to build something new than to resurrect the dead. And boy, if that's not the truth. And I think church revitalizers, especially young pastors, they're going into churches and they're so scared to rock the boat that they want to just keep everything in place. And I think that they worry so much. So I would just say, look, don't worry about these situations. Just follow the Spirit of God, and begin making the changes that are necessary to build the vision that God has called you to build. And of course, I said this a second ago, but just breathe, man. Just breathe. Take time to. I made the mistake of. I was talking to a pastor. As a matter of fact, a pastor in Eastern North Carolina that I'm kind of mentoring a little bit. And I told this pastor, I said, look, don't. You're going to kill yourself if you keep on the way you are. In 2 years' time, you're going to be exhausted. So I said, just make sure you delegate some of this stuff out. Don't do everything. Delegate it out. Empower some people to do things for you. And these are advices that I wish I would have been given, because when I was in Kansas, 2 years after being there, the reality and the hard truth is, did my church grow? Yes, it grew to the if not the first, it's either the number one or number two largest Church of God church in Kansas. And but that sounds really good on paper, but I was dead. I mean, after 2 years, I was done, and I couldn't stay any longer because I was so beat down and worn out. I had to do something else, and so that would be my advice: is to pace yourself. This is a you hear it all the time, but it's the truth. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And
that's right.
Don't get so focused on numbers. Numbers are going to come and they're going to go. Focus on the transformation. Focus on seeing lives changed. You're going to have those great Easter services, and then the next Sunday it's going to be
nobody's there.
So don't just relax and don't hang on to those numbers like they mean everything. They don't. And that would be my advice.
Oh, that's good, man. So take a breath, guys. Find some time with you and your family.
Yes.
Go play some golf. Go fishing. Take a morning off on Monday mornings, man. We all know how hard those Mondays are. Spend something that can help you relax. Spend some time doing something that breathes life back into you. Most importantly, spend some time with God, man. That relationship with Him is everything. So,
yes.
Thank you so much for your time, man. That's been some great information. I hope guys will glean from that. If you get a chance, check him out up at Stewart Road. You're doing some great things. Looking forward to seeing what you're going to do there. You've got a proven track record, so I hope the people there are excited and ball in, and we'll be praying for you and do the same, praying for you. Season down here in Eastern North Carolina. I know you would when you were here before about the heat and the humidity, so it won't be long till them things are back. But so keep us in your prayers up there. We'll be praying for you. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thanks, Pastor. We appreciate you. Thanks for the ministry that you're doing, the opportunity to do this with you. I'm honored to do it, and thankful for you, thankful for your family and ministry, and God's best to you guys as well.
Sounds great. Have a great day, everybody.
God bless.